everyone. My name is Valerie, and I'd like to welcome you to our 2 days webinar with the topic how to efficiently administer, prepare, and migrate documents and metadata in OpenText Documentum. Before we start, let me quickly explain you our mandatory housekeeping slide. Please note that during the whole session, all attendees have to be muted. In case you have any questions, please enter them into the question panel on your right side, and we'll answer them in our dedicated Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded and that we will share it with you after this session. So now let me introduce you to our today's speakers. Today we have expert speakers for you from both our teams, Migration Center and dqMan, and they are Frederick Olsen, Sales Representative at FME, Lucien Stanos, Developer at FME, and Mike Uhlenberg, Consultant at FME. And now I hand over the word to our first speaker, Frederick.
Yes, hello, and welcome from my side as well. So the agenda today, we're going to show how to use both tools for a better migration project run. And we prepared a great demo for dqMan. We also prepared how you can work with the Migration Center afterwards and going back and doing the post progress with the dqMan as well. So let's start with one slide who we are dealing with right now. FME, we are founded in 1995. We have about 300 plus employees throughout the world. We're about 35 million revenue, and we're offices in Germany, Romania, and United States. And we are focusing for the last 26 years on enterprise content management. Throughout the years, we also develop business intelligence cloud, social collaboration, and also doing products. And we are the product department here. So I'm going to make a short reminder of the main focus of Migration Center and as well as the dqMan before heading for the live demos. So let's start with our migration portfolio. Our migration portfolio is laid out to help our customer to reduce cost, manage risk, increase productivity, and fasten the go live of your enterprise content management application. And we do so by delivering a migration products as well as also services if you need. Migration Center, some key figures. The good part with Migration Center is it's really 100% out of the box software. So there's no additional programming or scripting effort needed. We have about 1,500 plus successful projects worldwide. We actually don't really know because some of our customers are using Migration Center for the last 10 plus years on a daily basis, and they do the projects on their own. We have about 16 years on the market, and we will see in the next slide, we have more than 220 possible migration paths out of the box. So you can really choose from what system you want to migrate into what system, and all you have to do is to configure the tool. We can do the migration without any business downtime. We are also first certified by leading ECM vendors. We have a global service presence. So wherever you are in the world, we have actually from all around the globe today present. So we can support you, be very close to you and working with your hours. And Migration Center is also suited for regular environments. It's a little bit of quality stamp that 9 out of 10 largest pharmaceutical companies are using Migration Center as of today. And we're very happy for that. But we are industry independent, of course. So wherever you need to migrate a document, we are there for you. Just a short thing about architecture. Migration Center contains of the red box here, which we call Migration Center Core, where you have the client, and this is where the only place where you can do the configuration, setting up the rules, and doing the mapping and so on and so forth. We have a database and also a content store where the content are stored when we do the physical migration. On the left-hand and right-hand side, you can see the source connectors and the target connectors. They are all connected throughout an API job server script that we have, and this is doing the whole work. So we are connecting to the API, and you can see all the systems that we're supporting as the source connectors and also as the target connectors. If for some reason you don't find a source or a target connector, we also see on the bottom here custom system SDK, so we can really in a short time develop your API for your system. Migration Center is following a very straightforward process. So it starts with extract and analyze. We are scanning the whole database and getting out all the metadata. And once we have all metadata in Migration Center, we start to organize. And as you can see here, some examples like marketing or sales, we call it then migration sets, and you work with those migration sets. And then you go over and start to extract the objects and transform objects. You're doing the transformation and mapping, we call it. And once you're ready setting up all those rules and all those mapping, you can do a validation. And this is very powerful because you can see if those documents will work in the new environment before you start the physical migration. If for some reason some errors occurs, you can see a red dot and you can go back and do the correction. Once you have all green dots, you can press the button, and that's where you will start to migrate documents and also bringing the new metadata to the document. And then it will import it to the new system. And then you can go back and do next migration set. So this is, you're going to see that in the live demo of Migration Center, that the whole Migration Center is built up throughout this process. It's very straightforward and clear. Continue with the dqMan overview. dqMan is an administration tool which supports the OpenText Documentum users to admin, maintain, and program their document content server. So some general features we have are working with DQL and API code and scripts. We can do DQL and API code and command and scripts. We can do DQL results grids. We can do some syntax highlights, and we can also customize quite heavily. Some feature highlights. I'm not going to mention them all, or you will also see them from Lucian in the live demo in a bit. But we have the repository navigator that lets you easily navigate the folder structure of the repository. The same thing we have with the object navigator, but here you can navigate all types of ACL, owner names, and relations, and so on and so forth. We also see that. It's all in one site to be seen. With favorites, you can save custom DQLs for later use. Script generator makes it possible to generate DQL and API scripts from your value results. Compare objects. When you compare two objects, you will get the different highlights, so it's easy to see where you see a difference. Import, export data makes it possible for you to load Excel CSV files straight into the results window and also import it back. So you can really work back and forward and be very flexible here. Last but not least, the consistency checker, which should be one of the main functions that you really should use. That checks and fixes most common issues in a repository. And beware, your support groups that works with this should check this regularly. This should be done before you start any kind of migration. It's one of the best practices for anyone that migrating documents. So by saying that, we now go to the live demo of the dqMan. We start at dqMan, and I give the word to Lucian.
Okay, so today we'll be presenting document migration. Basically, we will migrate some documents in the same repository from the folder webinar source that you can also see here in our repository navigator. You can see here, and it's folder structure. And we will migrate the documents into webinar target. This webinar target cabinet does not yet exist because it will be created by Migration Center automatically. As an added requirement, we also want to migrate the permission. So of the document, of the permission of the document in source, we want to simulate a real migration between two repositories. So we will migrate the ACLs in our case because it is the same repository. We will migrate them by creating duplicates with slightly different names. One other requirement that we want to show. It's also to prevent the users from modifying the documents in source, because normally such a migration might take days, and we don't want the documents to be modified in source while we're migrating them in target. However, if you want to, this approach allows us not to do a delta migration, but Migration Center can perform its own delta migrations very easily, so we can even migrate documents live. In order to accomplish this feature to prevent the user from modifying the document during the migration, we will use a temporary, let's call it temporary ACL that doesn't allow users to modify, only to view. In the end, after the documents are migrated, we would like that the target documents to have not the restrictive ACL that was applied to the source document, but we would like to have the corresponding ACL, meaning the one that was in source, but with a new name from target. So we basically want to have the target documents to mimic the one in source, but still to be different, just to mimic a real migration between two repositories. So in order to begin, we would like to see that we have some documents here in the folder that you see here, webinar source. So we will perform a simple DQL. This simple DQL shows us that we have 95 documents in this cabinet and its folder structure. So the documents are somewhere around here. And this results window, it's basically the one that shows us the results of the DQL. As you can see, okay, now we already settled the restricted ACL. We already put it here, but we want to actually, this was a small problem. Now I want to apply to the documents the same ACL that we had before. I will call this just to have various, to have the proper ACLs for normal documents. So now I just executed a rollback script. I will explain now. So just to start over, let's say that we have our documents in the webinar source that have various ACLs. Like we have here ACL webinar 2, 3, 4. There are 4 ACLs. So these are the documents that we want to migrate, and they have different ACLs. The end game would be to migrate these documents, but instead of having for the migrated document something like ACL webinar source 3, to have ACL webinar target 3. In order to do that, we would like to first understand which ACLs these documents use in order to be able to migrate them. In our case, to copy them with a different name in the target to use on the target documents. So in order to do that, we basically execute another small DQL that selects all the ACLs used by the documents here. So as the results show, we have four ACLs, and we would like to create a script that duplicates them. But at the moment, we will use this functionality. So in the results window, we can right-click on the results. We use the ACL create script functionality, and this will present us with a template already generated by dqMan, in which we can copy the values from. Basically, it allows us to have these placeholders that will be used by dqMan in order to generate one such script for each results that we see in this results window. So after we have this template, we just click on generate, and now we see the ACL that was created. We see for webinar source 4, source 1, source 3, and for source 2. We want to save this for later use, so we will call it create ACL source, and it will automatically create an API script because this is already created functionality, and we can close that for the moment. So we created a script that allows us to copy the ACLs. Now, in order to apply the restrictive ACLs on the documents in the source, We would also want to have a rollback script that at some point allows us to know which document used which ACL before our restrictive ACL being applied. In order to do that, we execute a simple DQL to give us all the documents from source. We have here our 94 results. We select all of them, 95 actually, and we want to generate a script, like I said, a backup script that identifies which ACL is being used by which document. In order to do that, we use the create script functionality, which is a general script. Like you saw, I right-clicked, but the difference compared to the create ACL, we don't have automatically create a script because we can generate any script that we want. Here we have the script type, and there are several possibilities, but we will now use DQL. So I will have to create a DQL template. It's a very, very simple DQL that we want to create, where for each document, like I said, this placeholder that we have here, we can use any attribute we want. And the value for these placeholders would be filled with the values of each of the results that we have in the results window behind. Just use object ID. And we will click on generate. As we see here, they were creating 95 scripts where we know that before applying the restrictive ACL, we know which ACL was used by which document. Now we can save the script, automatically set as DQL. Apply ACLs. We save this. Okay, and now we can proceed with applying the restrictive ACL to prevent people from modifying documents in source. In order to do that, we execute in command a simple DQL that says, please apply all for all the documents in webinar source, including its subfolders, the ACL, restrictive ACL webinar. We just execute. Actually, for this, we have multiple ways of applying this. I mean, one solution is to have this DQL executed, but I think would be also interesting to have a different approach. So we have, again, the documents. And we can actually, instead of generating a script or executing this DQL, we can also inline edit. So we take this restrictive ACL webinar ACL, and we go to the ACL name column. We select all the results for which we want to apply this value. We click on F2, and we put the value restrictive ACL webinar, and we hit enter. This will take a little bit of time because even the script takes a little time to execute. In the end, basically, we will have all the documents that we selected here modified to have restrictive ACL webinar, this ACL to be applied on documents. So we don't really need to rely only on DQL. We can also inline edit it. Okay, so this is basically what I wanted to show. Now my colleague Mike will show the actual migration.
Thank you very much, Lucian. So now Lucien, thank you, Lucien. So now my name is Mike, and I will show you how to migrate the documents from the prepared repository, let's say. Some words before that. Originally, we planned to migrate documents and also ACLs from a repository to another content server, but in the last minute, the original source repository was not available, so we had to improvise and do everything in the same repository, right? That's why you saw also the ACLs were already set to read only at the beginning, because we tested very quickly. But that doesn't matter, because let's say we visualize the migration in the same repository. So what Lucien just did, he prepared the repository to set all documents to read only, because maybe as he also mentioned, the migration can take a while, and in case we don't want the users to change or add new documents or delete documents, you can prevent that by setting that ACL very conveniently with the dqMan, right? Yeah, here to mention that Migration Center also supports full Delta functionality. So this case is a special case where a read-only repository is needed. But in other cases, you can also migrate documents while users are still working on the source system with Migration Center. So we did this only for this demo case, and also in the real world, there are some cases where you need to do that. So Lucien set the ACL and also backupped the original ACLs so that we can apply the original ACLs after the migration with Migration Center, again with dqMan, to apply the documents to its original state, let's say, so with the original security and ACLs. So he did that with inline editing, as you saw, mass inline editing, and also to generate the scripts, which we can later use after I migrated the document in another demo with Lucien. Okay, so now I show you how to migrate the documents. So here you see, I hope you see, yeah, you see my screen, and you see Documentum DA, right? So just to show you the documents which I want to migrate. So as you saw also in the dqMan demo, we have this folder structure here, webinar source cabinet, and in there we have some example documents which now have a read-only ACL. So what I'm going to do, I will migrate those documents with one by one metadata basically into another cabinet called Webinar Target. Okay, to do that, you have installed the Migration Center with its three components. We have the database, we have the job server, and we have the Migration Center client. So with the Migration Center client, you see here in the toolbar, you see scanner, migration set importers, and also jobs and job servers. That's basically what you work with. So these are your main tools which you need to perform the migration. Yeah, first of all, you have to check if a job server is running, just to show that to you. So you can also add many job servers to the Migration Center ecosystem. So that's for the scalability. In case you need to increase the performance of the scanning or importing processes, you just add another job server, give it an IP address or name, and just add it here in the Migration Center client. Okay, today you see we have 3 not available, 2 available. So in this case, we anyway only use 1 job server, and this is available and running. Okay, so we can start with scanners and create a scanner. And here you see already some prepared scanners, but today we want to look in the Documentum scanner. So let's open that configuration. You see, give it a name. You have an adapter type and the location, the job server, which is performing the task. And then you see platform platform features basically and parameters relative to the corresponding platform. And you see for Documentum, for example, you see all the different features like renditions, versions, only export latest versions, virtual documents, and so on and so on, right? So for this demo, for the 95 documents, I basically entered the credentials, the repository name, the scan folder path, and the document type. But here you could also use a DQL string to query the documents you want to export into Migration Center. Okay, let's save that one and click on Run. And now we can click on History. Let's manage the windows. Here you see the scanner is running and exporting the documents. The metadata is stored in the Migration Center database, where the content files, the documents are stored on a temporary file share. Okay, so 95 finished. Also here you see this last status run or run status. It's finished, and now we can have a look to the metadata. And in Migration Center, if you click on View Scanned Objects, you will see a typical grid. Let me close scanners as well, where you can work with metadata in Migration Center, right? Also later for transform and validate and do the attribute mapping, you can use this information here to decide what you need to map and how. Right, this is just a typical grid. In this repository, we have 3 custom attributes. Here you see the ACL name and all the other Documentum attributes, as well as some custom attributes, which are not very important today for the demo. Just example documents like project number, department, and other stuff. Okay, so at any time when you see such a grid, also after transformation, so after you changed attributes or after you associated the attributes to the target system, you can also have that view at any stage. And also you can, for your convenience, you can show and hide columns in that view, for example, to focus on specific attributes. For example, for the transformation or mapping, okay, now they are most likely empty, but doesn't matter. So you can create your own view and also export that to a CSV file at any time, right? So this helps you to communicate the information with departments or key users or customers at this stage after the scan to say, okay, here, this is the data and metadata we have scanned from the system, and now we need to decide, for example, to do a mapping inside a migration scenario. Also, this CSV file can be used, as Fredrik said earlier. For example, if you have the source system ID and the target system ID, you can export a CSV script to use that in dqMan, right? To do processing in dqMan when you have the information, old ID and new ID, for example, that can be seamlessly integrated in the both tools. Okay, so let's close the scanner window, and now we're going to show the migration sets. And here we do the transformation and validation. So I prepared an example mix set already. Let's open that one. And in such a mix set, you choose a name and then you choose a type, which is basically the corresponding path, right? Where you come from, where you go to. So what Fredrik said, we have many different paths because they can be combined with each other normally. So here in this demo, we choose Documentum to Documentum, and then we go to the file scan selection where we see our scanner with 95 documents. So I simply add that to the mix set. And just briefly shown here, also you can now if you like, exclude objects by values or by advanced filters, just to, for example, exclude objects which have share attribute or have an attribute in common. So in this view, you see a distinct list of available attributes, and if I click on one, you see also a distinct list of available values, right? Possible values. So here, as an example, a content type, you see these extensions basically, and if you want to exclude all GIF files from that mix set, you can easily do that by using the exclude objects by values filters. And in this case, you can easily make sure that you don't have a GIF file in that transformation or mix set with that transformation or rules, right? And then you can later process that file. Right, in advanced filters, just briefly said, you can basically do every kind of exclusion. So here you have any kind of scanned attributes. You can use many different operators and values and even combine that with an and or. So that means you can really create a condition, a where condition, so to speak, to really tailor the scope of documents in that particular mix set. So we will not do that in the demo. So we stick to the 95 available objects. We select the objects to the mix sets, and now they are assigned to that mix set and cannot be assigned to another one, which prevents you from mistakenly process these objects twice. Okay, in that mix set overview here, which is your main maybe view or monitoring view, you see the different states here. So we have 95 unprocessed documents, and we actually want to have them imported, right? So we have to jump basically from unprocessed to transformed to validated and then to imported. And as Fredrik mentioned, in the processes in the Migration Center or migration processes, which is basically underlying the Migration Center tool, you also have errors and partially imported states here in case of any errors are catched at the import time or in transformation or validation. So this is where you really have to work on, so to speak, to get all the documents in imported state. Okay, to do that, we have to create transformation rules, and you just open the transformation rules editor window. In this case, the attributes are already there, but as we do a one-by-one migration, I simply click on generate rules, which will basically give me all the attributes from the source system, right? So also briefly explain, because we don't have too much time. In Migration Center, a rule is representing an attribute in the target system or in the source system, right? An attribute. So let me show one example. They are all the same. So we have one department rule, which is basically which have functions you can use to get values into that attribute if you need to change something, or you want to merge something, or you can really do basically everything with the attribute values. You can use other functions, but the easiest function is get value, and it will just get the value or the attribute value from the source scan. So one thing we want to do, we want to add a new rule or attribute, and we call that legacy ID, because we want to have the old ID from the old repository or legacy repository in the new import, so that we can process with dqMan later. And also it makes sense in many migration projects to have the old ID for other processing or other tools which can refer to that old ID. Right, to do that, we just also get a get value function and simply choose source attribute, and we want to have the R object ID from the source system in that rule. So we have a new attribute, basically legacy ID, right? Okay, we also have to need to associate that one. So we choose legacy ID, we'll go to the target type, legacy ID as well. So add this association. And so we can save the migration set. So to apply the transformation, we simply click a button, apply transformation, and that processing is done on the database layer, right? So this is really fast, because we don't need to communicate with other external system. Also, if you have 10,000 objects in it, you can really easily transform the attribute values. And because that that really helps you, let's say, because you can always have a look to the attributes you just transformed. So in our case, it's one by one, but I just want to show you how that could look like. And here you see all the new in brackets attributes. And if you, maybe we can have the legacy ID here, if that's correct, we can check. We can also check with the columns here. There we are. So let's just focus on the legacy ID. And here you see, okay, that's the old ID. I mean, maybe we get the object ID as well. So that's the ID in source system, just to show if they are correct, right? So we set the correct value here. And if in case, I will not show you now, but if in case it is not correct, you just reset the processings with a button. You go back into the transformation rules editor, you change something with the rules, with the functions, and then you click again the button to see, okay, now maybe it's correct. So that's really like what you see is what you get. You can really try, let's say, you see the new metadata, and then you can say, okay, I'm satisfied with it. Let's go with that data into the validation. The validation is quite similar with the button. So you click apply validation, and now we have 95 validated objects. So validation is really done in terms of metadata against the target type object type definition. So that's we checking mandatory attributes are filled, or if the maximum length is exceeded, or if you have multi-user or repeating attributes in Documentum, and you can even use regular expression to really validate the new metadata. Right, and at any point of time, you can check the validated validated data as well in these progress views. As I said, you can export the view at any time. For example, in this case, you can say, okay, this is a new metadata we have transformed and associated. Please confirm, so we can start the import, for example. Okay, so we will start an import. So let's close the migration sets, go to importers. And here it looks like very similar to the scanners. So again, I have a name, a job server, and the adapter type. I have the same credentials. and I say, okay, import objects. And here I say the import location. So I use the original structure, but I want to start in webinar target, so that cabinet should be created. Okay, let's save that one and click on run. We have to assign the mixed. And now click on run. So now it's running. And when a job is running, you can also click on jobs. And here you see, if it's not already finished, you see a progress percentage, and you can also start and stop or pause a job at any time. Okay, let's see the history. 95 documents are imported, so we can have a quick view if that's the case. So Lucian can go on with the processing. So now we copied basically the document and the structure, and we have still the restrictive ACL because we did not set that with a migration center this time. Okay, and now I can hand over to Lucian or Frederick. Actually, we have one slide for that. Yeah, so as we said, so Lucian will now activate the target system to set the original ACLs, but in our case, because we use the same repository, we choose another ACL because the original ACLs already exist, right? So we call them target ACL just for this demo. And then also we want to compare a file from the source system to the target system to see if the attributes are different or if we, missed something or did a mistake in the transformation.
Okay, so like my colleague explained, now the migration was performed. So if I select, if I execute a simple dqL where I want to see, okay, what objects I have in webinar target, now that should give me some results. So we are in webinar target in this cabinet. So we see the document just like Frederick showed. Also, even in dqMan, we see the legacy ID that that was automatically populated by migration center. But let's say in the source, I should not have it. This is just to show that. Okay, let's put it like this. Let's see. So in the source documents, I will not have this attribute populated, but in the target, I will. So just like we saw before. So now, as you can see here, we have the restrictive ACL, which is like the one that was taken from the source document. We would like to modify that. So in order to do that, we need to first create some target ACLs, and we can do this by copying the source script that we have created. We put it with targets. We open it with Notepad, and we would like to say, okay, all this ACL webinar target should be replaced with something else. With more targets, and now we do replace all. So basically now we have the script for that we can use for creating on the target system. In order to that, we copied the file from here. We copy the content. Then we go in, since this is a API script, like it's specified here, we need to go in the API script windows. That this window allows us to execute multiple ACLs in one go, so we don't have to execute them one by one. So we just copy here in API script. We execute run, and we have our ACLs being created for the target. Okay, now we want to execute to apply these ACLs to the documents from source. So that means we need to go on the copy, on the rollback script that we have here. That basically this script identifies. Okay. Copy paste is not working. Okay, it's working. Okay, we simply edit it. And here we see that in the source document for this object ID, there was this ACL. But like Mike explained, we also have the legacy ID. Let me do a small replace. So what we want to do, so first we have on the source, we have ACL webinar source, and we need to replace this with ACL webinar my target, just because these are the ACLs that we created and we should use for the target documents. So we simply replace ACL webinar source with ACL webinar my target. We do a replace all. And now, like I was saying before, since this ACL, this ID, it's for the source document, we need to use the one from the target document, but the proper object ID from the target document, it's actually the one on legacy ID. So we basically will use something like this. Only that instead of object ID, we use legacy ID, just in order to generate the script for the new target. So basically now we have the proper way to identify the source document and proper way to identify the correct ACL to be used on target. This is a dqL script. So we need to copy it and we can paste it in, we need to open the dqL script window in dqMan. And this is our script, and we execute it. And you can see here the objects are being updated one by one. In the end, we should have all the documents migrated and updated correctly. When that ends, we will also see, can verify this. So before we apply these modifications, all the documents have extra restrictive ACL webinar, the documents from target. Now, if I re-execute this dqL, I see that on target, I have the object ID, the legacy ID from the previous source, and we also have the proper ACL, but using my target instead of source. Now, just to do another demonstration of how the comparison functionality works, because now we have the document in source and we have the document in target, but we would like to see, okay, how are these documents different? We can pick up any document we want here. We pick the object ID from the source, and we say, okay, I want to compare the document from the source with the document from the target that it's, of course, is being identified by legacy ID. So we do a simple dqL. It shows us the two different documents from source and target, and we right click on the object ID, and we use the add to compare list functionality. We added this one, and now we add this one. So basically now we see the document from source and from target being added. One more check, just to make sure that this is the source and target. We see that in source, the legacy ID it's empty, and in the target document, the legacy ID, it's exactly the same value that it's here in the object ID. We also see here very briefly the values that are different. These values are different because of the time zone of the migration center, of the computer where the migration center will install. We see that the e-folder ID it's different, and basically all the values that are different are highlighted very easily. Also, we see here the ACL, because on source it remained like with restrictive ACL webinar, but on target it's the, let's say, the proper one that we decided.
So this was really good to see how you can combine those two tools and making a great migration project out of it. And of course, I mentioned in the beginning, we also propose you training for dqMan, also training for Migration Center. And we also do other migration services. I'm not going to cover them all here, but we do everything from proof of concept until full service. So if you need support or your team need partial support, please reach out to us and be happy to help you on this. So you can also follow us in all those medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube channel, and you find our homepage for migration-center.com and also in dqMan.com. You also find some proposals in there, and if you need some direct information from our side, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to support you.
You just want to add, you can also download a trial version, right, to test the tool, to test the dqMan if you like. So we offer trial version on both products, actually.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much. And also, if you want to meet up live with us, we have a few trade shows coming up. European Collaboration Summit in Düsseldorf. We have 2 Viva, and we also an OpenText World and Highland Summit later on this year. So we'll be really happy to meet up in person. And also for this show, we also have a 15% discount for the dqMan license. You find it here, and this is the code you're going to use, kickoff 2023.
With that being said, we arrived at the end of today's webinar. We'd like to thank you all for attending and watching, and we hope to see you again soon and wish you a great day.
Also from my side, thank you very much, and see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your time. Bye.